What's up, everyone? Brian Castro with another callcastro.com and EXP Realty. Uh, Real estate news, report, info. I don't know what we should call this. But today we're going to be talking about flooding in honor of this crazy, crazy weather we're having, right? I think that in our area out here in Chehalis, we got like 5 inches of rain in 2 days. Absolutely crazy. So, we're going to talk about flooding and what it means for real estate. We're not going to worry so much about the construction consequences and what it actually does to buildings. We're going to talk about mostly what it means for the buying and selling process. So, when buying or selling a home, it is critically important, especially out here in Lewis County, that you check to see if you're in a flood zone when you're going to buy a property. Best way to check is to look at the county map. When we look at the Lewis County parcel, or if you're up north a little bit, Thurston County parcel, whatever county you're in, there's a parcel map for it. You can find it online, just Google it, and that'll usually give you an interactive map to be able to see your property and where the flood zones are. Sometimes it'll cover the whole property, sometimes it won't. So it's really important to see if it is on the property at all, first and foremost, and if it is on the property, how much of the property, right? Because if the flood goes all the way up to the house, but the house is safe, sometimes, not always, but sometimes the home won't have to have all the rest of the stuff done. So you will have to check with your lenders and see what the policy is on flood if you have partial flooding. So now that we have looked at it, figured out where the house is relative to flood, we're going to assume, in this case, you're in a property that is in flood zone and there's no debating it. You're going to be able to look on that parcel map and see whether you are in the always flood zone, 50-year flood zone, or 100-year flood zone. Just because you are in a 100-year flood zone, don't assume that it only floods once every 100 years. That number is almost always wrong. It just is. But it is a measurement to see how oftentimes you will get a flood on your property. So now that we know roughly how often we're going to flood, if we're going to flood, the next thing you're going to have to do is you're going to have to get a flood certificate or an elevation certificate. Now, what this is going to do is it's going to tell you what the elevation of your home is relative to the floodplain. So ideally, your home is lifted at the very least out of the flood zone. So that way, if a flood does go through, your actual home will not be underwater. So if the flood cert puts you out of flood, you're in good shape. If you need insurance at all, it's going to be really cheap. If you're not, your insurance is going to really hammer you. So how much does insurance cost? You're going to talk to insurance folks, right? But very often it's going to cost at least $150 if you are not out of flood zone and your elevation cert is not good. It can be much more than that too. And why this matters is because if you have a mortgage limit, right? Say you can only afford $1,500 a month and your flood insurance costs $200, well, now the maximum mortgage you can get just went way down. So that's going to, as a buyer, really limit the amount of house you can buy if it's in flood, or as a seller, it's going to really limit the budget of your buyers. And a lot of the time, the price is going to go down accordingly because they're going to have to pay that extra money every month, and that's probably not going to go away. So that's the bad news. But the good news is that when you look at a house and it's in a floodplain, if you're a buyer, that's going to scare away a lot of other buyers. So it is a really great chance to get a really great deal on a property. I've actually helped so far this year 3 different buyers get homes that were in floodplains, and man, we got killer deals on all of them because people just were spooked by the house. They were worried about the moisture, worried about the flooding, and so competition on it went way down, and it really brought down the value of the home. And as far as I know, all 3 of them, even though we had this crazy rain, they had no moisture problems. I checked in with a couple of them actually yesterday to see if they needed a snorkel, I think was my exact question. Sorry, Ethan, if you're listening. Um, but they all said there was no flooding and everything was fine, even though they were in floodplain. So by getting that home, they saved a ton of money. So, when you're looking at floodplains, it's really, really important that you have a local realtor who can help you with the local area, who's worked with floodplains and knows how to get the insurance, knows how to work around the issues that are going to come up because they're really specific, kind of to Lewis County. You don't get it much anywhere else. And you really need to make sure that you're being incredibly careful, because if you do say get a house and then the flood cert gets messed up, the insurance gets messed up, it could blow the whole deal at the last minute, or worse yet, you might end up with the house and then get a flood, right? So if you ever looking to get a house in a floodplain, you know what to do. Call Castro, and I'll talk to you guys next time.